Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering What We Do in the Shadows. Season 5, Episode 2, A Night Out with the Guys. In this episode, well, I was wondering how long it was going to take for Guillermo's secret to get brought into the light. And it turns out it's only partially out, but it's enough out that I'm already worried. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to Max for commissioning this episode. You guys, this season is... I am really excited. I really am. I think that I hadn't realized how it had kind of gotten old, what was going on with Guillermo always being put off and being like the sad boy. And had just accepted, like, well, this is the shtick that we're going with. And, you know, he still is the sad boy. That's kind of the brilliant thing is, like, despite it all, he's still, things haven't really, like, turned a corner for him. But this whole, like, secret and the way that nobody really understands what's happening and why, I am so here for it. And I feel like this is the strongest plot line that has ever sort of carried the season from the beginning. I'm hoping so much that it lasts and that we don't just, you know, sort of turn a corner and it falls apart after like episode 4. But we'll see. So this episode, I have some questions. And I'm really curious about whether or not anybody else has the same questions. Because, y'all, this show has been pretty consistent most of the time about like character stuff and the lore, and they don't really tend to fuck that up too badly. But there was an episode in, was it the first season or the second? Whatever episode it was that when they all get caught by animal control. In that episode, it is explicitly said by Nandor that he is not good at doing hypnosis. And he attempts to do it and it doesn't really work. And that's like a couple of times he tries it and just kind of fails at it. And eventually, it's Laszlo, I believe, that has to step in and do it. If it's not Laszlo, then it's not. It's one of the two. Because I know for a fact that Nandor was the one confessing that he wasn't that good at it. And I believe that the context of it was sort of Guillermo being like admiring about it and him being a bit embarrassed at the fact that he just isn't super proficient. Yo, what happened? Why are we now turning it around to be the opposite? Did they just forget? Is that just like, I kept waiting for this to be a bit, I was going to say a bit of a, but no, honestly, I kept waiting for this to be a bit. For it to turn out like, oh, yeah, I used to be really good at it and I'm not anymore or whatever. And it turns out that, like, the writers, I think, just straight up forgot that whole thing ever happened. And for that reason, normally, this kind of thing, I'm just like, oh, they clearly forgot. LOL. It happens, doesn't bother me. But unfortunately, like, a whole plot line in this episode relies on the fact explicitly, specifically, that Nandor is much better at it than Laszlo, and that Laszlo's jealous and has been jealous for a while. And so, thus, I'm sorry, as much as I would like to just sort of hand wave that this, is a mistake that we fucked up and it's not a big deal, I can't do that when you make it the whole episode. And it's a shame because the episode is actually quite fun. Like, that plot line is really enjoyable and hilarious. But because it's predicated on something that has been contradicted by an earlier script, it just feels really, sloppy. That's the word I want. It's just that it feels really sloppy. And I am not like, I cover the show an episode at a time. And because I cover it this way, there is a possibility that I am picking up on things that other people might not. And so I might be a bit more picky about certain things than average. But I don't feel like the way that I talk about some of these episodes would make it so that I remember ridiculous, tiny, nothing details that nobody's going to remember. I feel like if I were to search, hey, wasn't Nandor supposed to be bad at doing like hypnotism? I feel like I'm going to stumble across a bunch of like Reddit posts where people have noticed this as well. It was not a nothing detail. It was sort of like a key point in that episode because the fact that he was not good at it was what made it so that they couldn't get out of animal control. And so like it was a key plot point for that episode as well in a way. So, just I have to come out of the gate and say that as much as that like plot was super fun and I'm going to talk about it and just sort of set aside that it doesn't really make sense with the context of everything, it bothered me when I realized that apparently nobody else remembered the thing that I thought was like going to turn out to be part of the joke. So I just I'm sorry for it. I don't like being this way. What can you do? So the start of this episode is Laszlo kind of mocking Nandor because he keeps on falling back on mesmerizing people, when in fact a lot of the situations that he winds up in are his own fault. If he had just kept his mouth shut, if he had just guarded his tongue at all. And to be fair, throughout the episode, we see that as much as Laszlo may be saying all of this because he's jealous, he isn't wrong, and even Nandor can see it. There's just a whole, like, series of moments where he just blurts shit out. And eventually, they do wind up in a place where it's like, okay, I kind of think that we have to mesmerize somebody to get out of this situation. But it's a really, really particularly bad moment, and it's not the norm, which apparently has become for Nandor. It's the norm for him to just like go out here and just completely hypnotize everybody all the time. So I also like, that's the opening we get that's the cold open, and then we get the credits. And I had forgotten to mention that Evil Mabel is in the opening credits now. I meant to say something about it last episode because I don't think she was in opening credits the season before. I may be wrong about that, but I forgot to mention it because she's not actually in the episode. And that turns out to be part of the thing when she shows up here, because it is really funny, you guys. She's just trying to like become part of the gang, and they are excluding her but it's not totally clear what the deal is and why they feel like they don't want her around. There are times where there's like characters who are extremely obnoxious and everybody's just sort of like, yeah, we all agree. No, thank you. We don't want to involve this person in our lives. And we're all completely in agreement on that. This isn't one, like, she's perfectly friendly and not obnoxious. It doesn't feel like she's super pushy. It feels like they're all just lazy and oblivious more than anything. And I was just not really sure if, like, maybe it's also the fact that she's sort of part of the establishment. Is that it? Like, that they just don't kind of want her around because she is part of the bosses, and it's like I won't say like she's spying exactly, but maybe it could feel like that, like she's a bit of a narc. I don't know. Regardless, though, the episode is mostly to do with her, well, not mostly, but her plotline is mostly to do with the fact that she was apparently hoping that they would invite her to stay in the house. And they haven't done that, as she puts it, because there's some zoning regulation where only 4 vampires can live in the house at once and they can't have a 5th. And she's just like, yeah, it's, a zoning thing that they were talking about, but I've never really heard of. And of course, like, it's not real. And the thing that's kind of what made me go, hold on a second, because it's one thing if you are telling her this because you find her so annoying and you are just inventing more and more elaborate ways to keep her out of your household. But she just doesn't seem that bad. So coming up with more and more elaborate ways, I was like, but why, guys? Isn't it just easier to like have her around? She's kind of enjoyable, and she's also like a horny weirdo, just like all of you. I feel like it works. I don't know. But we don't get there right away. I just had to talk about that out of the gate. I do enjoy this plot line. The thing that we start off with is Nadja just bemoaning her life. And she keeps talking as if everything that has happened to her is pure circumstance and that she is just the victim of it and that there was nothing that could have been done to prevent any of it. And if there had been something that could have been done, everybody else should have been the one to do it, but none of them did, so they let her down. It's just a lot of poor me, everything's going wrong and nothing is ever going to change. Yet another moment when Nandor starts to suggest mesmerism to solve her problems. And it's pretty, like, I always am a fan in this show of the moments when Nadja gets to be particularly ridiculous because she can be the one that's like got her head on straight most of the time. So when they sort of let her go into her more goofy moments, I am very, very into it. It's just fun to watch her especially annoy everybody else, because even when she is being silly, she doesn't tend to get to be annoying, which I don't know if that's so much a thing about her character or if it's really speaking more to the fact that, like, these days writing women like as just the annoying one, especially when it's one woman in a house with 3 other dude characters, maybe making her the annoying one isn't exactly like a great look. I don't know how much that's like particularly a consideration of theirs, but it did occur to me. So yeah, she's just like whining and she's talking about all these different things that happened and how her sister's legs got crushed. Meanwhile, her doll is like, yeah, but you did that. You remember doing it, right? Like everybody is just going, yeah, well, we tried to stop you. Yeah. And we told you that was a bad idea. And she's just talking over them as if they aren't even there. So this leads later to a whole thing where she is, and it seems to me like Mabel planted this thing, right? I don't know exactly how she made it so that this thing kept returning, even though it was being torn up or thrown in the trash. I feel like there has to be something genuinely magical about it, but I don't know how that works because they have access. Like, there was that whole library full of basically magical items. So maybe there was something in there. But the fact is that, like, Nadja recognized the woman in the photo. And what are the odds of that? I just don't know how, you know what I'm saying? I don't know how much that is something that can be explained. So if there is a theory out there that, or maybe we get told exactly how this went down at some point and I haven't gotten there yet. I don't know. But I really am curious about, like, how it felt like the way that Evil Mabel looks at the camera when they translate what it says on the picture frame. It felt like she was kind of doing a whole, hey, see what I did there? Like a little wink and a nudge, which led me to believe that she had set this all up. And I don't know how she did it. Like, maybe this was something that she left and got the stuff ahead of time before proposing it all. I don't know. But anyway, it doesn't really matter that much. So in the end, the suggestion that she makes is that, oh, there is probably a hex on you. And when Nadja's like, do you mean a curse? She's like, no. A curse is just something that losers make up when their lives are going wrong so that they don't feel like so much of a loser. But the hexes are very, very real. And so she pretends that she's like sensing some energy in the room. And again, I'm saying pretend because I'm pretty sure that she set all of this up, but I'm just unclear on exactly how it keeps appearing. Did she just make like 10 of them and keep putting it in place because she knew that was going to happen, that the instinct was going to be to destroy it? Maybe that's all it is. I don't know. But she like shows Nadja this photo, and Nadja says, this is Yaya Nika in Antipaxos. She was a very bad luck woman, a real shit stirrer. How did this get here? And she tries to tear it up and throw it away, and it's back again, and she throws the whole thing into the fire, and it's back again over and over and over again, until eventually it's suggested that maybe she should translate what it says on the outside of the frame. But because she can't remember, it has been so long since she has spoken this language that she doesn't recall how to speak it until they wind up going to Little Antipaxos, where she suddenly, it like comes flooding back to her. And the reason that she finds out about that is because she goes over to talk to Colin Robinson and see if he can do a translation using his computer. And he's like, well, why don't you just go to Little Antipaxos? And at first, she just thinks he's fucking with her. And she like smacks him on the back of the head. And it's just like, yeah, why don't I just do that? Shut the fuck up, idiot. And he's like, no, I'm really asking, why wouldn't you go do that? And she finds out that like 15 minutes away is Little Antipaxos, and she had no idea the whole time that she has been living here for however many years. And she is so mad at him, and he's just like, well, you never asked. So they go over there. It's really actually kind of adorable. She's like wandering around looking really fondly at everything and just kind of, I can't believe it all looks just like it. Like, I feel like I'm home again. There's all this cheap shit and old fish. It's like looking out like my childhood bedroom window. And she takes like a little bite of some kind of grilled meat and vomits copiously. Oh my God. Horrible, you guys. Every time that they do this bit, it's a combination of like the sound effect of the splattering and the very real kind of sound that the actor makes. And I don't like it. I just don't like it at all. And she like, this reaction comes the instant after she takes a teeny tiny nibble. And then she just puts the like little, what do you call it? A kebab, I guess. She puts it back and it's like, I'm sure that you can still sell this. And I was just like, oh my God. Oh God. Like, I know that she vomited after she took a bite and it's not like there's vomit on the kebab, but nevertheless, ew, gross. Never. No. So this is when she finds the old diner and goes inside, and she is having such a great time, just like bonding with these people in here, speaking the language. And evil Mabel is just sitting there trying to be involved and attempting to like ask, what did he say? What does that mean? And she keeps being like, oh, it's an anti-Paxos thing. I don't think you would get it. Or, oh, well, that takes a lot of time to explain. And I'm just not, I don't want to get into it. Oh God, you guys, this is the kind of thing that I think about all the time, because like as a kid, I didn't speak Spanish. My father's whole family did, and they barely spoke any English. And it was always really hard. We would, get together and they would want to speak the language they fucking spoke. Of course they did. And I never begrudged them that. I was never like mad at feeling like I was being kept out of the loop. But it was really hard that I didn't speak it. And there was like, I had a cousin who spoke English as well as I did. And so it was basically me hanging out with her all the time. And I just wasn't able to really build relationships with anybody else. And by the time they were much better at English, I was older and had my own whole life. And so it was sort of like we just missed the chance to get closer as family. And then my dad died, and like everything with the funeral was a disaster. And I just wound up sort of like losing touch with everybody. And I think about it all the time, just like how it could have been different if I had, like, really what it is that I should have had more effort put into teaching me Spanish as a little kid. But to a point, understandably, my father was like thinking that if I was to get ahead, knowing Spanish wasn't going to be advantageous to me. It was much better if I just spoke English really well and presented as white as possible, which isn't untrue, unfortunately. So I think that a big part of him thought he was doing his best for me, that what he was, doing was the right thing. And I had just like this scene where there's so many like jokes where they're laughing and you're trying to understand, like, wait, what was the joke? What's happening? And nobody really wants to take a moment out to explain it to you. Half the time the joke is sort of a play on words that doesn't really translate right. And just this sense of being like out of the loop and a third wheel who's hanging around for no reason. The whole thing was put in a new light in this scene. But obviously this is low-key how Evil Mabel feels all the time. Like, she is out here trying to fit in with all of the crew and trying to like find a place for herself in the midst of their already formed clique, which she acknowledges, like, busting into a vampire clique can be really hard. So it was just like putting it in that context, like seeing it as, what about when it's like a language thing? I really felt like, oh, this is just how she lives all the time. And doesn't that suck? I want evil Mabel to be accepted. I feel like if they had made her truly irritating, I would, in some ways, enjoy her being rebuffed and the constant attempts. And I think that's part of the point, is like, the vamps are not supposed to be nice people. We're not supposed to really like them. They're supposed to be thoughtless, borderline cruel, and just sort of terrible, selfish assholes. And so the point is that she is perfectly nice. And they are just kind of ostracizing her for no good reason. And I just have a really hard time watching that. It makes me sad. So that's the thing with her. But in the end, like I said, Nadja claims that she's going to turn over a new leaf. We'll see how true that is. I am not going to hold my breath. I don't know about y'all. And then here's this other thing that I found really funny. You guys, so the boys' night out, I don't remember the other two dudes' names, but we have Sean and like his two friends who are very like Jersey Shore feeling dudes. And this is when they're all out at this, like, I can't remember if it's called a brasserie. Is that how you say that? But basically it's sort of a like a wine bar. And Nandor, like a fucking weirdo, when they're like, hey, we never see you guys drinking anything, taking a sip of anything. And, you know, there's an opportunity for just a sort of like moment of, well, yeah, you know, and just making up something, which is what eventually Laszlo does do. But initially, Nandor is just like, oh, well, I don't drink wine, but I do drink something else that's red, but it's not wine. And it's like, literally, what do you intend to say after that? And finally, Sean is like, okay, then what is it? And Nandor seems truly taken aback. Like, he was just never expecting them to have a follow-up question. And of course they did. And Laszlo has to chime in and be like, oh, he likes Red Bulls and vodka. That's what he means when he likes to drink something red. And they all like love that. They're a big fan of that explanation. But he's just sitting there like as if he got somehow talked into a corner and unexpectedly was like, oh, I've got to find my way out of this. You put yourself there. What are you talking about? And again, rightfully, Laszlo in the moment is just like, yeah, dude, see, this is what I'm talking about. What the fuck, dude? Why are you saying this stuff all the time? You just blurted it out, and for what reason? And what I liked about this episode was that I kind of thought we were going to get like because like the way it starts off and him saying this stupid thing, you could answer this with mesmerism, and even though it was his own fault, I wouldn't be mad at approaching things that way because it's the easiest, most like direct method, right? So a part of me was just kind of like, yeah, all right, if you want to mesmerize, why not? Go ahead. But it's something that Laszlo is charming enough to kind of sidestep. So that's the path that they decide to take for it this time, is they just kind of explain it away. And it works in that moment. We're like, okay, you know, it's just a Red Bull thing. But then as the evening progresses, things get more and more absurd, and Laszlo keeps insisting that he's going to be able to charm his way out of it, use, you know, his understanding of psychology to get out of it. And as things continue, it gets more and more obvious that there's only so much you can do, that there's not going to be a good enough explanation to get in. But at first, him choosing to do it his way does make the most sense. And so the guys eventually get in this huge fight because one of them is putting ice in his wine glass. Now, I really want to like speak in my own defense here, you guys, real quick, even though I know nobody was coming for me, but I am aware, and this is like partially my brand, it's my own fault, that I am seen as like a huge snob about food. Valid. I am. Like, that's not an unwarranted at all. But I am a snob when it comes to looking at things sort of from afar, if that makes sense. Like, if I'm on a Facebook page and I see that somebody posted such and such, and I'm like, why would you put those two things together? Like, I will be extremely judgmental by myself. If I am like standing in front of you, if we're at the same dinner table and you're choosing to like put ketchup on a steak, that very well may break my heart to excuse me, I don't know why I had the hiccups. Hold on. Let me take a sip of water. Sorry, guys. I get hiccups sometimes, and they take ages to go away, and it's really annoying. But it may break my heart to see you doing that, and I might hate it. But I don't step in and go, whoa, you are not putting ketchup on that. I may feel that way. And I may say to someone later, I can't fucking believe that he poured ketchup all over that prime fucking rib, Jesus Christ. But if that's how you like to eat it, far be it from me to step in and tell you, you aren't allowed to eat something a certain way. It's just, that is not the way that I approach things. So, for me, the fact that these guys get into this argument about this actually kind of cracked me up, because it's the sort of thing that I could really see people like thinking I would have the same feelings on it, that I would maybe even approach it the same way and just be like, what the fuck are you doing? Although granted, Sean does say something like that's an $8 bottle of wine. That was a very good line, to be honest. But I can have my private thinking about how you have bad taste. I am not going to step in and try and make you just not consume something the way that you enjoy it, because there's no part of me that doubts that you like it that way and you're doing this because you like that. I just think the fact that you like it that way means that you're a Philistine, and that's your business. That's not my business. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, these guys wind up getting into like a literal fist fight over this. And they break the front window. They like knock over a bunch of tables, break a bunch of dishes, and then eventually wind up breaking through the front window of this establishment, and the cops are called, rightfully so. And the cops, when they show up, are this one dude named Terry, I believe, who used to go to high school with these guys. So he recognizes them right away, and it's just like, oh God, you fucking dudes. And in a wonderful moment, these guys are being such assholes to this dude, which is fine because he's a cop and fuck cops. But what Laszlo decides to do is just charm him and try and pretend that everybody like has talked about this dude so extensively and so many times that he already knows him by reputation, and that there's probably a way out of this because of the fact that he is so much more of a go-getter and a smart man than his peers are. So they might not be able to think of a way out of this, but that's because they're not Terry. And then, as he's saying all of this, it turns out on the ground, Sean has crawled up between Terry's legs, gotten his handcuffs out, and affixed said handcuffs to Terry's ankles so that he can't move. And then his other friend has gone and stolen the car, the cop car. It's such a great bit because Laszlo could talk them out of these situations, but these guys are truly such fucking imbeciles that he keeps being put in a position where he has to like clean up after them. And it doesn't have to be this way. So over and over again throughout the night, like at first you're just kind of like, he's right. We don't need mesmerism. He's managing this. And you see Nandor being like impressed a couple times, just being like, wow, he really managed to pull that off. Eventually, they all run, they get into the cop car, they crash the car, they flip it. And at that point, Nandor turns into a bat and flies as the boys run off. And he starts to leave, and then he realizes that Laszlo's not coming with him. And I'm also going, Laszlo, bail. What are you doing? Get out of there, dude. Like, run the fuck away. But when Nandor comes back, Laszlo says to him something like, well, you thought that I wanted to be a coward like you? And I was sort of like, damn, what is the problem? But it's just apparently because he's salty, because he's supposed to not be as good at mesmerism, so he's just gonna stand here and like try and make a point by talking to the cops. But for what reason? Why? Like just get out of there. And of course, at that point, he has reached his limit. It doesn't work. He can't talk his way out of it. So they wind up in jail, and that's finally when he admits to Nandor that he is jealous, that probably this is a point at which you could use mesmerism and it's like, you know, warranted. So Nandor uses it, and we see them all like walk out of the police station being saluted by everybody as they go by. And I loved it when when Nandor is like, what exactly did you tell them? Laszlo asks, and Nandor says, oh, I told them that we solved all of the crimes that these guys committed. And also I said that I am Captain Sully Sullenberg, and you are that guy that you like from that TV show who is apparently Tom Selleck on Blue Bloods, which is not a show that I have seen. And so everybody is saluting them as they leave because of this, which is hilarious. But you guys, Captain Sully is it Sullenberger? I have to look this up. This is going to bother me. Sully Sullenberger. It is Burger. Guys, this dude is from my town where I currently live in Denison. And my friend did this incredible mural. It's like 30 feet high, and it took a whole summer. It was so much work. They did this incredible job. It's absolutely beautiful of Sully and the plane, and it's like a portrait combined with like almost a collage of like relevant imagery and everything. And there was supposed to be this whole ceremony to unveil it, and Sully was going to be there. They have told my friend every year for like 3 years that Sully is coming this year and we're going to do the unveiling. And it has never happened. And it's such a bummer. My friend at this point has like resigned themselves to the fact that it's not happening. This is never going to be a thing. He just doesn't care, likely enough. Sully, I mean. But, oh my God, y'all. I kept being so excited about it and being like, oh my God, I'm going to come, I'm going to meet Sully and see this awesome mural. And every year, it's just like, oh, psych. Yeah, that's not, sorry about it, but no, that's not happening. Y'all, every time I hear Sully's name, that is immediately what I think of. So anyway, that's how they wind up getting out of it. And now we are going to go over to what's happening with Guillermo. So Guillermo goes back to Derek to ask him, so my guy, how long did it take for you to wind up a vampire? Because you bit me like how long ago now? And nothing. It hasn't happened. So what's the deal? And it turns out for Derek, he said something like 6 to 8 hours, which the girl that Nadja turned, it took several days. It wasn't no 6 to 8 hours type thing. It took like a full day for her to really start feeling like she was getting sick. And then eventually there was like her seeming to be dead and her roommate calling the ambulance and everything. And so, we had a couple days of this before eventually she finally like was overwhelmed with bloodlust and like took somebody down finally. But 6 to 8 hours, that's really, really fast. And like, if you're kind of thinking about it in terms of maybe however fast it worked for the person who turned you, it may work as quickly for you. And there's no real reason to think that would be true, but like, I am somebody who tries to find patterns and correlations in things, and I might look at that and try and use that as like, okay, well, perhaps that means I can expect XYZ. So the fact that it has been over 2 weeks and still nothing when this dude had it happen in less than half a day, that is baffling. So Derek, like, what they decide to do is they go to the Baron to ask him, have you ever heard of this? And the Baron's also talking to, I can't remember his name, but the gargoyle dude I can't recall what his name is, forgive me. But yeah, they are asking them, like, is this something y'all have ever run into before? Like, what the fuck? And neither of them has ever heard of such a thing before, which is worrisome. And this is what's making me think that it has something to do with Guillermo's bloodline. Again, I don't have any evidence. I'm just sort of thinking like, what's something that would make the most sense? And that's really the only thing I can think of. But eventually the Baron is like, oh, there's this guy outside who, he turned him because the guy kept waking up in the morning and turning on his leaf blower. And you guys, that is the most relatable shit I have ever heard of. This dude is out here in the morning when this guy is trying to go to sleep. Have you ever lived next door to, like, tell me guys that I am not the only one. Where I live now, not nearly so much of a thing. But when I lived in Philadelphia, which is really what's sort of funny about it, because Philadelphia, you would not think that I would be next to people who even owned lawn care stuff, since we all had like a sort of postage stamp sized yard. But because people did have such a small yard, they were very meticulous with it a lot. And so people would have like weed whackers and stuff, and they would be starting these bitches up at like 7:30 in the morning on a Saturday. And I get it. You want to get stuff done when it's still cool outside. It's light out, but it's not hot. Get it done for the day, go in and shower and get on with your day. And I fucking sympathize, but also that shit is loud as hell and it's a weekend and we want to sleep in, and what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, that's really always what it comes down to for me. Is like, what the fuck is the matter with you? Do you not consider anybody else in your vicinity? And it gets into your fucking bones and vibrates. It's so loud. So anyway, I completely was on his side with this. And the dude is like really nice too, which makes it all so sad. I love when he's like, my liege, and the Baron just goes boop on his nose. And the dude seems to be like delighted by it. I thought maybe this was going to seem really sort of condescending. But no, this guy is sort of like, oh, he booped me. Like, it was so cute. So the theory that the Baron is trying to work with here is, what if we try again with like the turning thing, but with a different vampire? And maybe if you do it again, he says something like, you know, it might make you a double vampire, or it might make you like half a vampire. I don't know what it'll do, but it's worth a shot. So oddly, so Derek drinks some of his blood, and then he drinks some of Derek's blood, and it seems like nothing has happened. The Baron is like, how do you feel? And he's like, oh, you know, I feel fine. I'm just sort of irritated because the belt on this machine. And then all of a sudden, he just explodes like a water balloon. It is so abrupt and so horrible. You guys, it was so awful. The way that all of them are splattered too, it's gruesome. Ugh. And nothing happens to Derek. It's like apparently sort of a 50-50 thing. What could go wrong here? And I understand later when Laszlo suggests to Guillermo, well, what if I talked to Nandor and convinced him to bite you a second time? Maybe that would work. Understandably, Guillermo's like, I don't think that he might be fine. Derek's fine, it seems, you know, but who wants to take that risk? I don't like those odds either. I am not blaming him at all for kind of shying away from this. So I really can't imagine why that even happened to that poor guy. I feel bad for him. I really do. Like, you know, ouch, that sucks. He was just having a good old time being a vampire, working on his law and shit. Why can't he just have lived in peace? Oh, the poor thing. So, what it turns out happens later is Guillermo, anybody who has watched like a Three's Company, that's sort of my go-to, as it is for so many people, for like the plot of a show that's full of hijinks and silly assumptions and people like overhearing the wrong parts of phone calls or conversations and leaping to the wrong conclusions. He should know better, but Guillermo gets approached by Laszlo, who's like, hey, dude, I don't know what the fuck you think you're hiding, but it's become very obvious that there is some shit going on, and the longer you keep it quiet, the worse it's going to get. So you had better unburden yourself. And Guillermo's like, wait, what? And he says something else that sort of implies that he knows what's going on, which of course we know that's not what's happening here, but Guillermo is just so riddled with guilt at this point that he is jumping to all the wrong conclusions. So finally he just blurts out, well, I just felt so guilty. I didn't want him to know. He just kept saying that he was going to bite me and he never did. So that's why I went to somebody else. And of course, at this point, Laszlo holds his hands up and is just like, whoa, 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 what the fuck? You got bit by somebody else? And Guillermo realizes that he has made a terrible mistake and just told his secret and is horrified, rightfully so. And just like, wait, what? Oh my God, I thought that you knew what was... Wait. But it's too late. And if anybody was going to find out, Laszlo's the one. Laszlo, he is the one that's most willing to break rules in a general sense than anybody. Nadja, she sticks to rules because it makes her feel more comfortable, and she has a very strong sense of like, you are going to get what you have, like, reap what you've sown, basically, right? And I am also, in a lot of ways, that sort of person, but I also am willing to like cut slack for friends, depending on what it is that they have fucked up on. She does not consider Guillermo a friend, so that wouldn't even be a factor. And then, of course, you know, Nandor is the one, so he's not, and Colin Robinson would just thrive off the conflict of telling everybody what it is that Guillermo had done. So that's going to be a whole different kind of nightmare that he would enjoy so much. So yeah, nobody but Laszlo, I don't think, is going to be cool about this. You know what I'm saying? I'm just trying to like imagine anyone else finding out and like how that would go. And I don't know how long Laszlo keeps this secret either. He tends to be able to keep secrets, I feel like, or he has a sort of sense of obligation about it, you know, which he did with Colin Robinson as well. So I've been trying to think, like, eventually this information has to come out, and how does that happen? And my instinct is that Guillermo fucks up, not that Laszlo tells on him, but I think that Laszlo could be driven to tell on him by Guillermo doing something that Laszlo perceives as really, really shitty. I don't know what that would even look like, but I could just see Laszlo blurting it out in a moment of horror at like, I can't believe that you would throw me under the bus when I have been keeping such and such a secret forever. It would have to be something that he did sort of suddenly without really thinking it through, because when Guillermo says, please don't tell Nandor, Laszlo's reaction is, tell Nandor? I don't think he'd even survive that. Like, he considers not telling Nandor to be a service to Nandor, not to Guillermo. And that's why I really don't feel all that worried about him, like, you know, spilling the beans. But he can let his temper get the better of him sometimes. So that's sort of what's on my mind there. It's just like, yeah, I know that you don't think you would tell. And I don't think you would if you had a moment to stop and ask yourself, is this a good idea? But Laszlo can be a bit impulsive sometimes. And, you know, I don't know. That's my my guess, is that if I were going to say who's more likely to fuck it up, Laszlo or Guillermo, I'm gonna say Guillermo, but I don't think it's completely out of the question that Laszlo fucks it up. So, yeah, that's that. I'm trying to see if there was anything else that I forgot. Oh my God, I forgot about one of the guys shooting the gun off as well, because Sean tells him to like empty out the bullets, and so he just begins to fire it off randomly at the air. You guys, these dudes are so like, and I forgot to mention how Evil Mabel is attempting to get, like, she's trying to ask whether or not Nadja has ever harmed anyone. And, oh, interesting. So, okay. She asks Nadja if Nadja has ever harmed anyone, and Nadja keeps saying no. And Evil Mabel is just like, are you sure? Are you really, really sure? It hadn't occurred to me. I just thought Evil Mabel was just like fucking with Nadja to try and make Nadja be nicer. But did Evil Mabel actually put a hex on Nadja? Like, is this hex real? It never entered my mind that she had put a genuine hex on her. I thought she was tricking her into thinking there was a hex so as to attempt to forge a relationship between the two of them and bond them through attempting to take this fake hex off. But maybe evil Mabel felt pissed at the way Nadja treated her and actually hexed her. I never thought of that, but maybe that's what's happening. Because that whole scene is preceded by one where Nadja is lamenting how she doesn't have any close female friends, and evil Mabel is looking at the camera like, what the fuck? She's like, I thought over the past year that we had gotten pretty close. Same. Last season, they were together a lot. I had thought also that they were becoming very friendly. And when she keeps being like, you don't have any female friends? Seriously? And Nadja keeps saying, nope, not one. She never actually says, what about me? It's implied. And Nadja never picks up on that because of course she doesn't. Because she's just not the type to notice anybody else. That's just really what that comes down to in the end, is just a complete lack of awareness. She is so self-absorbed. But yeah, so maybe that's what's going on. That I never even thought of that. I feel really silly now, but maybe that's you guys tell me if that's what you think was going on, because that had not occurred to me. So I'm trying to see if there's anything else I missed, but I'm pretty sure that I covered everything. Yeah. So I'm a little under time here, but I feel okay with that because I've touched all of my bases, I'm pretty sure. I'm so excited though, you guys. I don't know what to expect about, Guillermo's transformation. The one thing that he manages to do this episode, when Derek is like, have you tried to become a bat? And he becomes a bat and flies around for a second. When Guillermo tries to do it, it just two giant bat wings come out of the sides of his head like ears. Like he looks like Gizmo for a second. Which I guess he has been called Gizmo, which is, didn't think of that, but I don't think there's a connection. But, so he's able to almost do something, but not really. So, but that's new, right? Last time he tried to become a bat, nothing happened. So he's inching along. I just don't know if it's ever getting where he thinks it's going or if he's stalling out. And that's the problem. So, so curious. I'm very excited to see where this is going. All right, kiddos. Well, I will be seeing you very shortly with a new episode. I hope you're enjoying the coverage. And until then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.